I'd like to call to order. Start off with a roll call. Say your name and say here, starting.
Yellow here.
Let's go here.
Andy, I'm here.
Tessa, you're here.
Hackett here.
Vanessa Price, Town Planner here.
John Huckins. Administrator. Fantastic. We'd like to go over the minutes from before. She's an alternate. Full voting member for tonight. Did you hear me? I said Dominus. Okay. Actually, can we strike that from the record? I don't want to combine church and state at all on this. There was no Dominus on this and that. If there's no problems with the minutes, if anyone has any questions or comments, they can bring them up now. If not, we can go for a motion as the accept the minutes as written.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Any second? So if they've been motion and seconded, we can accept the minutes as they were.
Who was second?
So Vanessa, you're up now.
Oh, sorry, just stealing the card.
What's that? Oh, all in favor of accepting the minutes, show of a hand, aye. Opposed? None opposed. Please accept them as being read and accepted. Next up would be our town planner.
I just have a couple things for just quick updates. You'll see there's going to be, there's one tonight as well. In July, there'll be several project extensions, projects that were coming to their 6 months, finish their project. I know that we had discussed before that extensions were continuances were acceptable in writing and or on virtual. If people do not want to be present, I did ask the owner tonight to be present because it's an extension and a continuation. If the board feels that in writing in the future may be acceptable, I apologize, gentlemen that's here tonight, if that's how you want to move. But I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because there will be several coming up. And then also, we're going to have our capital improvement program starting soon. And I know it's by statute that the planning board does it, and it's traditionally it seemed like the town planner had overtaken that task. So I wanted to make sure that the board is acceptable with that. Still okay moving forward, or if we wanted to work together for a CIP, and that's with all of our department heads making recommendations for things that need to be funding for department. And
typically how that was done in the past was the planner would get all the stuff in the department all together in a package, and then the board basically gave it a blessing. Capital improvements, sometimes you can't take stuff out, but you could change priority order for what you think the priority order that selectmen use it in the budgeting process in the future is the concept behind it.
Just to put it out there if we can, because there's so many members that aren't here, can we put the information about the capital improvement, what the options would be out in an email?
Yep.
And we can discuss it at the next meeting. Anyone opposed to that? So we're set with.
yep, that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Town Planner, for bringing that. Next time, we're going to move on to action items. The first one is action is 213-6-GR-21-Parents 2 It's owner Robert DiBerto. If I pronounce it wrong, okay, thank you. Request by the applicant to propose a subdivision to subdivide into 2-lot subdivision with both lots would access by an existing gravel driveway, reference map 213 lot 6, and a waiver on Sloper Road in the general residential zoning district by Chris Berry, Berry Surveying and Engineering of Barrington, New Hampshire. So who is here for this?
Myself, Robert DeBerto.
Okay.
On behalf of myself.
Can you please come up to the computer just so we can see your face and record it, and just for point of record, just say who you are, what you're
My
at.
name is Robert DeBerto. I'm the owner of the Sloper Road Real Estate Trust, which is the owner of record of this 32-acre parcel. Approximately 5-6 months ago, this was subdivided before this board, unanimously just cutting it into two 16-acre lots. There were some conditions put on it, mainly to do with deed designation on something to do with the frontage on the neck and how the deed should be written and so forth. They were fairly minor, but to be quite honest, the surveyor, Chris Berry, through oversight or whatever, never got it done. So last week or about 2 weeks ago, I got a call and email that the 6 month was up. So I was asked to request for a continuance, which I went to the town hall, put in writing here tonight. And so the continuance is pretty, what we have to do is not very complicated, but needs to be done. Part of the problem we've had people with COVID and other stuff. Not that that's an excuse, it should have been done, but we can get it wrapped up pretty quick. I'm asking because of your formalities and the way that's necessary and required to keep it consistent with the way you treat everybody else.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking for the continuance. And whatever is a normal length of time, I imagine it'll probably get done within a month, but if 6 months is the normal time you grant, then I'll take that, or if it's a year, whatever.
Chairman, just wanted to speak up that this is a request for an extension, not a continuance, just for language wise. But the request for extension, the applicant can ask that for 1 year if the board so decides. So that way the applicant can meet the conditions that were on the notice of decision. So it would be a 1 year from today.
Is a maximum?
That's the maximum. He does have a couple extra, I believe it's 2 after that, 3 total to ask for extensions total, but this is his first request for an extension for this project because it was a 6 month original to meet the notice of decision.
Right. And that's what you're asking, you want 1 year, up to 1 year?
Yes,
Okay.
do it much quicker than that, but that'd be great.
So if we can get a, is anyone on the board that opposes this? No.
Open for public
Yeah,
comment.
just for that, we
Okay.
gotta open public comment.
Okay, so let's open this up to public comment. Is anyone online or on the phone that wants to comment as well?
For the record, there's nobody online
Okay.
and there's nobody present.
He's with me.
Okay, it's like I see somebody, but there's nobody present here to speak for or against it besides the applicant.
Okay, then put it before the board is there a motion for,
Sorry, we have to close public.
can we put it to a point of record as acting chairman? That's all.
Acting chairman, sir, can.
So I can
Please
have
close
3 more
comment.
mistakes. All right, so let's close public comment. And then let's see, is there a motion for request for extension up to 1 year for application 213-6-GR-21-Parents 2 to extend it to give another year?
I'll make a motion to extend for 1 year. Article 213-6-GR-21-2.
Second.
So we get a motion and a second,
Take from today.
From today.
1 year from today.
Okay, so I'll make sure for the record. Okay.
Bob, are you making that record for the date? Okay. So let's have a vote on that. We can do it by,
ECLC,
That's your right.
Hackett, aye. So with it all said, it's passes through. We'll extend it out to 1 year. Yeah, well,
Thank you, sir.
thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right, then, the next item is, a continuance from the June 7th meeting. It is, application 223-26.58 and 59-RC-22-SR. A request by applicant Josh St. Hilaire from St. Hilaire Motorsports proposing a 17,400 square foot commercial building to include sales and service with a possible future 10,000 square foot storage building and loading with the associated parking and display area. Proposed area is located on Calif Highway, maps 223, lots 26.58 and 59 in the Regional Commercial Zoning District by Scott Cole of Beals Associates. That's you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the
Acting chairman. Just introduce yourself for the camera and for record.
Scott Cole from Beals Associates.
Thank you.
Josh St. Hilaire from St. Hilaire Motors.
Does he have to get in front of the camera for that one? Can you just tip it, just show his face and tip it back? The computer. Yeah. Okay. Just for point of record.
Camera. Jacob. Shares.
While you're working on that, one of the pieces requested at the last meeting was an example of signage. So I only printed 4. But very similar design of what we would like to do. Time comes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yours will say St. Hilaire.
Hopefully.
Do you know how to share screen on this thing?
I will try.
Oh, it's not. Try have a look.
I think you have. to
Yes.
go
So
into
they are
meeting.
backlit. They're backlit. All pieces are backlit. Yep. Similar
Here.
signage to what's been approved at competing power sports districts in town. Same brand, same sign supplier.
Under.
Just for clarity, it used to be the planning board approved signs as part of the application. That got taken out and put into zoning a couple of years ago, so now all signs are done
Oh, maybe it is.
B as part of the
Share trade?
application. Doesn't get signed in locations anymore.
It's under.
It was, I couldn't remember exactly why.
I'm just saying, I was explaining to the
Yeah.
board where they are, because it's,
I think the
and it's
location,
nice for them to
I just
know and see this, but
Might just share that.
not something they,
I think the location was requested last time also, so we figured we would just bring it. So I don't forget what they look.
I think maybe what it probably was is they want location on the plans. to see.
Right.
Try stop sharing.
Exactly.
and
Yep.
then
That on the new plan.
Yep.
Open share tray.
and if it doesn't.
Right.
location of the sign.
Good to come see you.
You're gonna get to come see me for a lot of.
A lot of things.
I wonder if you can save it on the desktop.
Josh, can I ask why you moved the cisterns to the front?
Based on Chief Walker's.
If you click this, does that,
Because when they were out back, I
Oh,
thought
it
Click
should, but it's
that.
not.
that.
Well, it wasn't an
Sure.
original. For
And
some
then
reason,
we'll
I
put,
mean, he didn't have a problem with it in the
will it,
beginning,
oh,
and it
will
was a
it,
late
if you click on that,
request.
will open it
So we
there.
just. We booked them to his
And then maybe
requests.
close.
Location.
That's why I was wondering if it was Chief Walker or is it
Yeah, I didn't
See if
really
that
think
will-
much of it, but it makes sense now where they are.
a fire truck between the burning building
For like-
cistern put out a fire.
Yep. Yep.
This is.
Basically,
Right.
location and exact placement and position.
I was just curiosity. I'm like,
Yep.
Yeah, usually Connors.
Have you, maybe try saving that to
Never thought I would say it. It's no fair without him being there. I want to give him time.
Yeah.
Don't worry, he's watching.
Is he? Is he the guest?
Why isn't he? I got it.
He needs his beauty sleep.
So he needs his beauty rest.
He needs his beauty sleep. He needs it every day.
You can watch it after.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
You might have to open it. Here, let me try. Sorry. That's probably what you just did.
Good question.
So are we just accepting this application?
Yeah, this has already been in front of you before. You guys already looked at everything in charge. We had CMA, you,
Okay. Okay.
site.
I think they should have plans in their packet. if
You
wanna
can
tell
do
them
it by
to
Microsoft Edge tab. Go back to where you just were with the three tabs where it said desktop and
I'm gonna ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
back to share.
Oh, it's good.
A little, I know it.
Some Microsoft tab.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll ask him.
That's good.
Oh, yay.
Okay, I think we're good. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Technology lane.
I know, right?
For that too.
Yep.
Buddy?
What is good?
Question? Have a question?
Yeah, so.
Question, gentlemen. Phase 2. No access from the side of the building.
Wasn't required by Chief Walker. It was a discussion we had with him as far as having fire truck access. And the plan met his needs. You could probably elaborate on that better than I could. but-
Yeah.
Yep. So, again, Scott Cole,
This is gonna require a new site plan.
no, it will require just a building permit.
But we don't have any schematics or anything.
Correct, as long as it fits, I believe, within the envelope, correct me if I'm wrong, and meets all the requirements, it would be subject to a building permit. Because it wouldn't be an amended site plan.
As long as it doesn't exceed the footprint of what you have on here.
Correct.
I can add something to, the chief, the applicant knows this too. So in phase 2, if they, for that, I know that might have come up about the sprinkling. I'd put that in the case file to have it looked at if it isn't with that requirement. I believe there's, wondered if it was in your, yeah, it's in your packet.
Yep.
It's the memo too that I sent over to you also, just in case you want to know what I'm referencing. I know that he was concerned about the phase 2.
So any vertical storage.
But the fire chief was okay with the rest of the his comments. Or the other comments have been addressed.
Okay, so getting back to the question at hand in regards to fire access in phase 2, when we met Chief Walker, discussed the maneuverability around the building in regards, and also fire protection. In phase 2, the way he explained it is, he needs to have access around the building no less than 150 feet with hose length from a fire truck. So as you can see on the, we'll call it the top of the plan, we had extended the drive, which will be accessing doors in and out anyway, back to where it says snow storage. And then on the bottom, we have the gravel display area and loading zone, either of location in which a fire truck could pull up to. And then we have both in each direction around the building, far less than 150 feet. So he said that was suitable for fire protection.
Was that an 8-foot rise up to the flat area on the south side of the building?
4. Yep, your typical loading dock is 4 foot high.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the rear of the building. You're parking a pumper back there and he's carrying a snow-covered slope. I'm just wondering how far you have to climb up that slope. The snow storage area.
is a cut and fill.
roughly 6 feet to the rear corner. Yep, 6 to 8 feet. So again, we did go over that with Chief Walker. And then in his recent review, I'm not sure if some of you will recall or not, the fire cistern we actually had located here in the rear of phase one. He didn't like that location. He said in the event that the phase one building does contain a large structure fire, it may be difficult to get to. He had us move it up to the front in this location here, which is more readily accessible and actually wound up being a little bit further away from the building. He actually, I believe, like via email, approved that location. He also had me do a couple of revisions to the details in regards to ability to the fill pipe. We didn't have the correct diameter, and we corrected that as well. The only other comment, as Nessa said, he is concerned about phase two. He said that since day one. It is proposed more than likely that there will be storage above 12 feet in height in phase two. Josh is well aware of that. It's been mentioned to him a few times. And now that we have the 30,000 gallon cistern, we have an adequate water tank or storage facility on site. And he understands if storage is to be higher than that, he will need a contained sprinkler system in that building. And again, that will be reviewed prior to any kind of building permit. So for recent revisions to the plan, other than the cistern, just so the board is aware, we did add a dumpster to the site. I believe Donna had mentioned it was not there in the first, and she was correct. We've added that to the left rear part, as you can see. We added a proposed sign location. On this particular plan, it's just a symbol, which is out front of the main building. That is located roughly 22 feet off the right of way, which I believe meets the criteria for the sign. Josh sent around an example. That's not solidified yet, obviously, with the dealership's names on it, but that's roughly what they're thinking. We have also, I believe, discussed it last time, it was brought up by one of the board members for protection of the actual UTV and recreational vehicles under the raised canopy. That is now an actual raised concrete apron. So cars will not be able to go up on that, and it protects the vehicles under there. And the last item I believe we changed to the plan, it was asked, I believe it was the chairman, to increase the radii of the pavement, both entering and exiting the site. Increase both the apron radii, I believe, from 25 feet to 40 feet. So that should help any vehicles getting off 125, not getting stuck in the driveway. We have provided a minor landscape plan. We can go into discussion on that further. We have received 2 letters. There's a staff report and a letter from CMA Engineering. We can go over each, but basically the staff report from planning kind of addresses both. So if you want, we can go through that first, and if there's any questions, we can answer them. Does everybody have a copy of that letter? Staff analysis, outstanding items. The fire spoke of, there should be a letter everybody has in regards to phase 2 building. Number 1, town planner, the existing conditions is missing the map and lot number of all zoning of abutting landowners, please add. I looked at this again and I was kind of, I made sure, because I know they were on there the first time, that I added all the abutters with tax map and lot numbers because they weren't on the southern portion here. Labeled all other, obviously on our side, they're all owned by the same person. So I'm not sure why that's still outstanding.
What letter are you referring to?
I don't know if it's here.
Town planner number
I
1,
thought maybe,
it should be the staff letter.
Staff, right here. Which color one?
Oh, okay.
So I had indicated for our regulations that the map and lot number isn't on here. All I see is, I understand same landowner, but it just shows. Look at my actual plan right there.
Of the 223 dash map and lot numbers.
So I look at the, Stone Arch Development Corporation, Dover Point Road, Hampshire 03820. There's not a map bottom.
Oh, I thought you were referring to the abutters across the street. I guess that was a little confusing, which everything around this is, as we know, is obviously owned by the same person and entity, which is the subdivision.
Donut doesn't own this lot, though.
Excuse me?
Donuts doesn't own the lot. So,
No, Joe does.
Right.
But everything around it is owned by Stoneheart.
right, but it doesn't have the map and lot number. That's what she's saying. It's just should be written.
On this one?
Yeah, the existing condition.
Like right here. These ones they do. But the Stone Arch does not.
You're not listing the map and lot numbers, is what she's saying. on it.
For Stoneheart.
So it's all you can do is add that map and lot number. for that land.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I thought
Yeah.
it was kind of a known, so I thought we were referring to the people across the street. I didn't know it was,
Wow,
obviously
it's
it's,
a known because we know the project, but
Yeah.
it's not on the plan.
all right, that's a very minor issue.
Yeah.
Simply add that, that's no problem. Number two, there are two lots being developed together. Notice of voluntary merger. We certainly understand that, and that's to be done prior to any kind of final. Number three, the applicant is requesting a waiver for the requirement to have notes section on the cover page in section 3.2.1. We discussed that at the previous meeting. What was, I guess, deemed the most important town notes are on the cover page. And then there are a number of outstanding notes, more of which are on page 2. In talking with Vanessa, I have actually been made aware, I guess going forward, maybe the board voted to actually revise that regulation to page 2. I don't know if those are in effect yet or not.
Well, since your project has already, from the previous site plan regulations and subdivision regulations, project is not eligible, but
Yeah.
in the future, you wouldn't have to ask for a waiver for that.
So we did supply a waiver for that as a formality. Seems that adequate. And again, all the notations and all are certainly on set. For the boundary monuments, I checked with Doucette Survey, the surveyor of record. You can see in the legend, I did add all of the monuments that are there as they exist today. Here. The only ones that really have not done, obviously, is just the proposed roadway up here, which is under construction. And if they will, or they, so certainly, you'd add those.
Honor would be done by the subdivision as part of their requirement when they come around that.
Yeah, it's actually not part of this. It would be part of, as their requirement and, they would do that. So they will be added. We didn't want to show them so weren't actually installed. We do number 5 at the end, I guess. Or landscaping, what the cook was do for that. We went into landscaping quite a bit in detail at the previous meeting. And Josh was very upfront in the fact his business and use of the property, trees were kind of a hindrance. We elected to do a level landscape design, which basically took some recommendations, I believe, 1 or 2 members into, at the front of the property, we have spec'd out New Hampshire DOT wildlife mix, integrated some mulch beds with juniper around them and maybe some hardscape to go within the mulch beds. This is a comment that was also brought up by the town's review engineer. There is verbiage in the regulations that discuss the need for internal trees. I guess it's really up to the purview of the board. A waiver is necessary that trees are not provided. If that's the case, I do have a waiver provided or written, if I can submit to the board. But the landscaping is basically right as what we had discussed. The wild mix, you basically mow once a year. It reestablishes itself. It doesn't get crazy overgrown. And this kind of use here, there'll be, the maneuverability is needed to, move around vehicles and whatnot, the plowing, and he just didn't feel the need to have trees behind the driveway. Even if we put anything, you wouldn't see it anyways because it's so high, and then it would down off the driveway. So
I have a question on the upper right. The terrain is being altered. That's what, about a upper right hand corner. Wondering, are there any plans for any way to handle any runoff there, like snow melt or anything? Think will be absorbed in the soil?
once vegetation grows, I don't think it'll be an issue. Prior to that, I believe you can look at the erosion control plan. I believe we spec'd out that any 2-to-1 slope will be matted until such time that it's vegetated, which is normal course for 2-to-1 slope. So with that said, on the landscaping.
I can share mine. It's gonna go in our case file.
Give me a second to that. Very simply, we understand there has to be some sort of landscaping. Believe that we have accomplished what we said we'd try to do in regards landscaping minus the trees.
Josh had mentioned once, which I thought might be a good idea, maybe a low stone wall. You had talked about that.
I definitely recall talking about landscape stone. I don't know that I mentioned a stone wall. And I just don't remember that. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but certainly would prefer not to do that.
Okay.
Did put some, and we'll get on the updated plan, right? Some stone.
You have large boulders.
Yeah, boulders
larger
or
boulders,
stone features.
not
could be-
necessarily stone wall. Nice look. Decorative boulders on the entryway.
Everybody's okay with that. There was also another waiver, which I believe we did right ahead of time in regards to lighting. That was actually recommended, I believe, by Ron at the last meeting. Lighting design is the same as, if you recall, there's a front canopy on the area that I said was raised concrete now. So under here, under the front of the building, the facade here is some recessed cans. Obviously, those with the idea to light up any kind of display area would be above the 2.4 category for candlefoot. And it was requested that we submit a waiver for that, which we have done. Since that time, and mind you, I'm not the lighting engineer, we have the light fixtures and the poles, which are all the same height, same wattage and everything. And CMA noted, I think there was 2 of them have a slightly higher value than the 2.4 directly under the bulb, which you'll never see by the naked eye. There's nobody around here anyhow. I don't know if it's a mathematical thing in the program, but basically they agreed. They said just put it in the waiver. We have done that. So if you read the waiver, the revised waiver, it says press relief for the candle foot within the canopy area and specific to a couple of light poles. These are all downlit as required, dark sky compliant. Again, you'll never notice the difference, but we will provide that revised as requested. The only other outstanding issue we had was a comment from, I believe, engineering and planning to request a waiver, which I still can't understand myself. Per the regulations, there is a statement that says any commercial building over 10,000 square feet needs to provide a traffic impact analysis. Now, we have not done that yet, only because of the amount that Josh has had to spend on us and other professionals. It just hasn't been done yet. We have to do it as a requirement for DOT. It's their requirement. We can't get the driveway permit without it. Then the job is done. So it really falls under state permit. It's not something we don't want to do. We have to do it. So to request a waiver for something we're going to do and provide doesn't make sense. It would be considered just the same as we don't have the AOT permit yet, but we have to get it because the job can't go forward without it. So that's kind of the stance where we're at. It was both recommended, I believe, by planning and the engineer to request a waiver. A waiver is something you ask for relief of the regs, but we don't want relief because we have to do it. So I guess that's really a discussion of the board. We really saw it as a standard condition of approval to go forward. You need it, and then if you don't, you can't go forward. So that was the last outstanding item that we had in regards to the review, unless there was something else that somebody had a question with. We'll answer any questions if we can.
On the last comment about the traffic analysis, the reason that I think their waiver should have to be is because if it was a town road, we would have that done. It would get reviewed to make sure everything was all set. Or it's a state road, and the state requirements exceed the stuff that's in our regulations anyways for them to get their DOT curb cut. So we're not asking them to supply that analysis to the planning board so that it can be reviewed to make sure it's compliant. But we do have the requirement that they have their curb cut from the state, which in all reality does the same thing. So granting of the waiver because of them being on a state road would be justified, but having that granted, that means you didn't get the traffic analysis, but you don't need it because it's on a state road. You follow that concept?
I do, but I've worked with DOT enough. Anything we send to DOT usually gets CC'd to the town. You're gonna get that study.
We get it, yeah, we get it ceased.
So
We get it.
that's why
But the planning,
there's no need for the waiver.
right, but if you take the waiver of this now, the planning board can give you condition of approval. You're all done. You don't have to come back here once you get your state permit. If you give it so the planning board has it as an analysis, then they're using it for their third-party review to make sure that it complies, but it makes no sense for them to take that from you because it's not on a town road, it's on a state road.
So as a normal.
As a
condition-
state permit.
A normal condition of a project,
A normal
town
condition,
would
right.
need to be reviewed.
you would, yeah, review. So basically, ask the waiver not to have to give you that information because we're not gonna use it because you need your DOT approval. So your DOT, you're not supplying the planning board with a traffic analysis. You're just gonna have a DOT approval at the end. DOT forwarding it to the town isn't forwarded to the planning board.
Correct, that if you don't do the waiver, they'd have to come back before us after they get the DOT analysis.
No, the regulations require them to supply a traffic study. And the reason why they would supply one is if it was on a town road, you would use that to make sure that the road can handle the traffic and it doesn't need a decel lane or all the other stuff. But you're not making that determination, so you don't need that traffic study. So because of that, they would ask for a waiver not to have to do the traffic study. They're gonna supply one to the state, but you still have a requirement that you have to have a DOT approved curb cut before the plan is final. I mean, it's a paperwork formality is really all it is.
Yeah, and I wrote one. I mean, I can
Yeah.
give you a copy. For me, I've done this 28 years and I've never been faced with that. When you give somebody a product, there's no need to ask relief from that product.
You haven't supplied the board with that.
Correct, but it would be as part of the last condition of approval for the driveway permit.
Right, but for this application, you're not supplying the required information. They can give you condition approval tonight without that because they can waive that. If you want to wait until they get that traffic analysis, even though they're not going to use it, and you wouldn't get your conditional approval until they have it because it's a requirement of the application.
I wrote it. I mean,
I'm just trying, I know it's semantics and it kind of makes no sense.
it
but
doesn't make sense at all. But
When I thought the
They will. They have to at the
we
end.
will.
but isn't that proof that it's done?
Well, it proves that they got a state curb cut. The town doesn't need the traffic analysis, is what I'm saying. We don't.
But Vanessa will get information from DOT.
Yes,
Get an email, I'm telling you.
yes. That's,
I
For
live on
the,
Yes, she-
yeah, for the drive. for the-
and she'll get a copy of the study.
You'll see their application and stuff that goes.
But I think the important thing that John is saying that in order to get a conditional approval tonight, you already have it written. It's not gonna change anything.
And-
That's all.
Let's not drag it out anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
and as a side note to the board, this might be something that we would like to look for to change our regulations, that we're not burdened future applicants with this. When we look at it, we have lots of discussions as town council. And
Yeah, when it
too, it's like, well,
becomes
it's following
legality
our,
issues that you don't need.
it really, and I said,
Technicality,
it's shown as a burden, and I said, well, party regulations are gonna ask, they have to ask for a waiver.
I think the
But
largest,
that might be in future, when we're starting to do our revisions, maybe we should, not maybe, but it sounds, like we should, if it's on a state road, provided or
If you're applying for a
correct
state curb
language,
cut, it's
yeah.
not required.
Correct.
We thought about putting it right
Right.
in the regulations, just clear in black and white, and that got brought up.
part of the burden is it came up later on, and that process takes a significant amount of time. So that was,
The application beside you, it took 2 years,
yeah, no, I get it,
but yours shouldn't be as bad as theirs.
yeah. Anything that we can do to streamline. Not for me, but for others in the future.
Now, well, that's a regulation change we're looking into because of that.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Chief's note, letter, indicating, we're talking about the 12-foot high ceiling.
Yeah.
The last line, he says this also would apply to phase one building as well. So, no even though we have clear, height and distance and everything in phase one building, has that been determined whether you would do a sprinkling?
I will have to ask John.
It has not, and
It's kind
I will say,
yeah, I mean,
I love Chief Walker, but he did sort of go back and forth a little bit. In our initial sit-down conversation, which was prior to our first planning board meeting,
yeah,
it was only directed at the storage building if what was called high pile storage, not that whether we were going to do it or not, whether it was able to be done. So his point was future potential owners or tenants of the building having the capability to exceed 12.
true.
And so that was never part of the plan for the use of the main building.
Yeah.
Therefore, it was not ever included in our conversation with him. I mean, so what was strange to us is in the phase two building, my point of conversation with him was, well, if we tell you we're not going to store over 12 feet, you would have to believe us, right? I mean, that would be, and to his point was, no, if you tell me that, you might be telling the truth, but if another tenant down the road, and so, but for some reason, the main building, because that was never part of our plan for use, it was never a requirement or a conversation. I know that he wanted to see, I think as a, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but he had suggested, for final approval, fire engineering review or something.
For the building permit purpose.
For the
But it comes
building
in,
permit.
right, so what happens is
Even
the
then,
height and area of your building and your use. So there's different things going on, because you calling that storage and it's over the 12 feet, automatically becomes high pile storage.
Yeah.
You're showing the other one as a display, an office area.
So
Even if you have higher areas, it's not designed for storage, so the fire protection engineer looks at it as the type of construction of the building, the use of the building,
Yep.
and there's, you go step by
And we actually-
an analysis, and it gets you to the point whether it's needed or not needed. Most of the time, a building like that wouldn't be, but a storage one would, even though it's smaller, because the potential fire loading that you would have in a storage area over a display area.
Right.
And I suppose in the repair area, in the rear of the building, you would have some firefighting.
Yeah,
ability.
yeah, fire extinguishers, much like we do now, are available, all station.
Yeah, this, June 7th, letter from him, that last line, I just toss that out.
It leaves a lot for interpretation.
Phase one building as well.
So like John said though, and I'm glad you mentioned that because we had that discussion as well, that the construction type of the building was a factor, so would the use type, so whether it was storage, whether it was gonna be retail or a combination of the two. So that's why I think the use of the building, the construction type and the size contributed to why the fire suppression in the main.
When they come in with their final building plan, all that will be looked at. And because it's a commercial building, Rick has been having people do a fire protection engineer report on it as part of the application. Show if it's needed, not needed.
Because in the Stone Arch building, they also were putting a separate cistern in, right? Sprinkling the building.
They had to do it because of the residential loading above it, so that changed the fire code on that.
So I believe at this point, we've pretty much addressed everything. I don't think there's any outstanding issues other than waivers, obviously, which the board can act on. We still have the AOT permit and the Hampshire DOT permit outstanding. So we'll be getting in the queue here shortly. So is there any questions?
I can just, one housekeeping comment on sheet 2. You have a note of 30,000 gallon cistern, but it's down in the display area.
It's underground, right?
Underground, yes.
To the left on the other side. This is the cistern. Then over here, they're saying 30,000.
Oh,
You said sheet
Sheet 2.
2?
yeah, it shows
To the left
it
of
shows
the
a schematic
driveway.
of the cistern on the driveway, and then there's a note that says 30,000 gallon cistern to the right in the display area.
Oh, I'm sorry, the label just getting it moved.
Yeah,
Yep.
just housekeeping, that's all.
Yep, no, I'll actually move that.
And the cistern is underground. Right?
Correct. Yep, there's a specific sheet for all the details for the cistern at the end of the plan set.
It's a big underground swimming pool.
I think I know where there might be another one. Does anyone on the board have any more questions?
This is to you. You probably know the answer, but. So, you know how associate buyers, they have a cistern in my back above ground. And there's others that have cistern with.
Okay, the cistern itself is designed just to hold water for the fire department to tap into like Associated Buyers has. Yours cistern that was on your building was put in to supply the water to your sprinkler system, which has the pump and the whole bit to feed the building. That's the difference. So if he ever has to sprinkle that building, then it's a whole different design where he has the pump and the whole thing to pump the water into the building because of the sprinkler. Did I explain it so you got it?
I think so. I mean, because if it's gonna be spring,
Well, this,
phase 2.
well, but if phase one's not, the system requirement, the fire chief wanted because of the building. Just like when Commerce Way went in, they put that cistern in for that whole development. Your particular cistern on your building, same as like when Buddy did his, was because of having to sprinkler the building. There's a requirement for a certain amount of water that is available for a given time period, and the pump sizing is all sized to that. And it's all based on the size of your sprinkler system that's in your building, so it's all done on design. So if any of these buildings have to be sprinkled, they'd have to go through the process of how much water do we need? What's the size of the sprinkler? What's the size of the pump? All that's all calculated out by an engineer. And then that's complicated enough that we have a third-party inspection done with someone else looking at that to make sure that it's all done right, because that's above my head. You know what I'm saying?
And we can still elect to not build the phase 2 building higher than 12 feet ceiling height so that we would not have to sprinkle. So we do still have that option.
They can build it 11 foot 11, so therefore it stays under, it's no longer high pile storage.
So
And-
theoretically, they would have to put another cistern in possibly.
They would have to come up with a water source to handle that sprinkler system along with that cistern tank. Yeah.
And where this cistern is for phase 1, or the retail building being so close to the road, there's gonna be, the cistern's underground, but there's gonna be access to it, some sort of piping to get at it. So there's gonna be some sort of protection from traffic, so it doesn't hit that or whatnot, like,
Yeah, if you look at the detail sheet, there's bollards in front of any of it.
No, really, it's in the landscape design.
oh, is it? Okay. Fair enough.
Roots grow good in the concrete.
Yeah, I've seen boulders, bollards, there's a number of different structures you can use.
The only reason I mentioned is for safety for the building, you know. Sorry?
They just put the one near the town hall. Haven't covered it yet.
Yeah.
We're supposed to do the test on that tomorrow.
So if you've presented everything, no questions from the board, is any open for public comment?
address your waivers, or you can address your waivers first and then open it for comment either way.
Well, I just open it for public comments. Won't do that. It doesn't appear like there's anybody online or on the phone. All right, so it's public comment. Let's address the waivers as they are.
Mr. Chairman, before you begin to, since we do. Excuse me. Since we do have 2 new waivers, even though I did mention it on here, let you know that.
So we have to accept these as being submitted as waivers?
You have to vote on each one separately.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's written in state law, you have to do
Yeah,
that.
So
it's in here somewhere, here it is.
Page
Page
three.
3, after each waiver,
language to include,
yep, I would
okay.
just
Not
get
granting
probably
the
the
waiver.
first one, I believe, on this.
Yep. Okay.
First one up, or, I feel like it's
I have no feelings. Okay. So the first one will be the one that was just submitted, which is they're asking for relief with respect. They request a waiver to the site plan regulation section 4.14.2, specific to the requirement of requiring a full traffic impact analysis. A full study will be prepared by the New Hampshire DOT driveway permit and will be issued to the board prior to final approval. Not granting the waiver would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and granting the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations. So we need
Second on that?
You need a motion.
a motion first, a motion to accept the waiver into the
Make a
plan.
motion to accept.
Second. So with it,
Andy, you seconded it, right?
At first.
I second.
with the motion coming forward and seconded, we just need to vote on it. All in favor of accepting the waiver, starting with a roll call.
Have a yellow eye.
Fiscal eye.
Andy, am I?
That's your right.
Hackett, aye. Unanimous, okay. So then the second one is, they submit a waiver to request a waiver to the town of Barrington, site plan regulations, section 3.5.10, specific to the requirement of internal shade trees. It was discussed in detail with the board that the client does not wish to have trees as part of the landscape due to the possible conflict with the business and required movement around it. A low-level landscape design has been provided and discussed with the board with their recommendation of New Hampshire DOT wildflower mix in mulch islands. We feel the waiver is justified. This would not restrict the purpose use of the property. So not granting the waiver would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and granting the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations. So,
Accept the waiver.
second. So the motion presented and seconded, a vote again, starting from left to right.
Have a yellow eye.
Fiscal eye.
Andy, am I?
That's your right.
Hackett, aye. Then being voted on to the affirmative, that's going to be added into the plan.
on their, final notice.
Okay. So then we go back into, that's why it was. There's one, two, okay. Yep. So, this one, waiver to the town of Barrington Site Plan Regulations, section 4.12.2, general requirements for medium level lighting, which requires a max of 2.4 foot candles. The canopy area has been designed for display of recreational vehicles with flush mounted ceiling lights that exceed the allowed foot candle. In addition, small areas within the parking lot area are slightly higher directly under the fixture, but the values meet the requirement outside the pavement. The lighting is downcast and is contained in the immediate vicinity. We feel the waiver is justified as a required amount of lighting is not sufficient for the proposed use and would not result in any light admitting onto abutting properties. Not granting the waiver would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and granting the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations. So we need a motion to accept the waiver as stated.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion presented and seconded with a vote on it. Hack aye.
Jesse, aye.
Andy, am I?
Happy all the time.
So
The
voted.
intent was to grant them.
Oh, so okay.
You said accept, but you were granting.
So granting the waiver. Okay. And this is number 4. Okay, with respect, we request a waiver to the town of Barrington site plan regulations, section 3.2.10, which requires all the project notes to be placed on the cover sheet. It is a standard practice to provide a clean cover sheet that includes a project title and all required permit numbers. We have provided the specific town notes as requested. The project data noted is in the plan set on the appropriate plans. We feel the waiver is justified, and this has been the standard in past and has not been an issue. And by not granting the waiver would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant. Granting the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations. Looking for a motion to grant the waiver.
Motion to grant the waiver.
Second.
Motion being presented and seconded. A vote of the board to seal. Hackett, aye.
Jesse, aye.
Andy, am I?
Crystal, aye.
Happy all the time.
All right, so that is also passed. What else do we need to do with this gentleman? We just have to read the town engineer, Western CMA. Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. You can, put your
Oh, no, that's-
Oh, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Okay, okay,
There it is.
gotcha. This would be much different if I was a professional at this, so. Oh, boy. Hope not. All right, so, dear applicant, this is to inform you, Barrington Planning Board, it's June 21st, 2022 meeting. Like I said, we haven't officially approved it. We need to vote on it.
You would have to vote on that.
To vote on
Okay.
it. I apologize.
All right, so, yeah. Let's look it up. Looking for a motion to,
You could say all the precedent conditions.
all right,
The condition. Just say-
so to make a motion to conditionally approve, all the precedent conditions below must be met by the applicant at the expense of the applicant prior to the plans being certified by the planning board. Certification of the plans is required prior to commencement of any site work or recording of any plans. Once these precedent conditions are met and the plans are certified, the approval is considered final. All right, we'll have to read all this. Gotta read the conditions. All right. You could ask your.
I can read it for you.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like it right?
I would love to. Help you?
Okay,
I'm gonna just.
okay. Please note, if all precedent conditions are not met within a 12 calendar months to the day, the June 2023, board's approval will be considered up lapsed unless a mutually agreeable extension has been granted by the board. The conditions precedent, we ask to add the following plan notes. The waivers, we have the 4 waivers, the requirement to have note section on cover page per section 3.2.10 of the site plan regulations. The requirement for general requirements for medium level lighting per section 4.2 12.2, the site plan regulations. And requirement for section 4.14.2 for the traffic
Point one.
analysis will be provided by the
Point one.
state. One, okay.
Yeah, 4.1, 4.1.
Waive the requirement for internal shade trees for section 4.9.7, 4, and perimeter shade trees per 4.9.7, 5, the site plan regulations. Requirement landscaping for section 3.5.10 of the site plan regulations. Number 2, add the following to the plans. Letter A, the existing conditions plans missing the map and lot number and zoning. Well, and now it's just the map and lot number. Zoning. That we will remove the boundary monuments on the existing concession space because that had been met and discussed. The NHDOT driveway access permit approval number, NHDES septic approval number, NHDES alteration terrain approval number. Item number 3, any outstanding fees shall be paid to the town. Number 4, prior to obtaining board signature, the applicant shall submit 3 paper plan sets and supporting documentations as required in our letter explaining how the applicant addressed the condition. This shall include final and complete reports for all items submitted during the review to the town of Barrington's file. The chairman shall endorse 3 copies of the approved plans meeting conditions of approval. The town should retain a signed and approved product of 11/17 in PDF-A format with supporting documents for town records. The applicant engineer shall certify in writing the improvements have been constructed as approved prior to the issuance certificate of occupancy. General and subsequent conditions. Number 1, where there is no active and substantial work required under this approval has commenced upon the site within 2 years from the date plan is signed, shall expire. An extension not to exceed 1 year may be granted, but majority vote of the board, so long as it is applied for at least 30 days. Date, board may grant only 1 sentence extension for any proposed site plan. All other plans must be submitted to the board for review to ensure compliance with these and other town ordinances. Active and substantial work is defined in this section as being expenditure of at least 25% of the infrastructure improvements required in this approval. Infrastructure shall mean in this instance construction of roads, storm drains, improvements indicated in site plans. Reference RSA 674 39. Note, in both sections, the numbered condition mark, number sign, and all conditions below the number sign are standard conditions under most applications of the site. I wish you the best of luck for your project. If you have any other questions, please.
So now we can ask for,
Motion
A
to
motion for-
conditionally approve the site.
so we need a motion to conditionally approve the application referenced here with additions.
I will make a motion to accept with all the additional comments.
Second that.
So you made a motion to approve.
To approve, correct.
All right, so we need to vote on conditionally approving it by the board. Hackett, aye.
Tessie, aye.
Indiana, aye.
Capiello, aye. Masucci, aye.
So with it being voted on, it's been conditionally accepted. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Time.
We appreciate your time and effort.
Acting Chairman,
Look
you're
forward to
almost,
seeing
you're
work
almost
starting.
here.
SAP.
Not soon enough, right?
Yeah.
DOT thing delaying.
The business is this.
No, really, we need to move forward with this. So, the notice of decision and the signed copy.
Yes.
that,
My name is Vanessa, but yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. You probably deal with more than Amanda than.
I don't know.
She's nicer of the two anyway.
Sorry, Vanessa,
Her twin sister.
Still- because there's a few
Yes.
things that are gonna be removed.
Yes, as we indicated, we'll, update with the correct waiver information. Item B is removed for number 2. And that will be mailed out, this week.
Thank you.
That'll be mailed to your,
Sorry.
it's everything,
I
fine.
know you're.
Fine, you're fine. I
I
just
don't know why.
It's okay.
I think you need to be able to say all the,
Yeah.
I'm teasing
What
you.
do you say? Acting. Acting. Just acting. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Luck, Josh.
No, what's happening?
That's right.
Talk about it.
yeah, exactly.
There we go.
So I won't make any reference to proposed casino. All right, so let's move on to other business, which is proposed wedding venue on Mary Hill Road.
Acting, if I may just give you, or the board a preference of how this came about. The town clerk for Nottingham, wanted to notify Barrington about this proposed project, that's going to be happening on Mary Hill Road. And just wanted to know if there was any thoughts from the board on it. It's in a very preliminary stage right now. They have not decided operation hours, time, etc. I told the clerk at Nottingham that I would present it before the board, and if there was any issues, I'd let you know, since it's letting our town line.
To Nottingham, so.
Yeah.
I mean, do we-
I think he was doing it more of a courtesy. It's just more of an informational notification for the board, and if there was any issues or any discussion on it, you don't need to motion or
We may be facing a wedding venue,
correct.
so maybe we should see, we could copy what they're doing. or
Yeah.
something.
Well, they were hoping that we would perhaps advise them, because I told them that ours was coming forward as well.
Are there any noise issues? It could be loud.
Yeah, because I did ask the question, I said, since it's very preliminary, I guess they went to go, the history behind it, they went to go pull their building permit for the building. And that's when it came to light that that's what they were gonna use the building for. So it came before the planning board. I don't think the applicants were 100% ready to answer questions, so it was continued to their next meeting. I did ask if there was, any complaints from the neighbors for noise or hours of operation or anything. In your packet kind of just shows, I think it's more rendering than maybe anything else. Try to close a map just to show where it is.
It's indoor though, correct? The barn at Mary Hill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's right off of Route 4. I mean, all the traffic's gonna be on the state highway. It's not gonna impact,
Louder.
it's not gonna impact
yeah.
any
the
town
highway
roads.
superintendent,
Yeah.
Far enough.
Traffic will drown out.
I mean, there was a question from one of the abutting property owners about the use of Mary Hill Road. That might be something that may come up, but I don't know how many people would actually traverse through there to go to
It would be a
Venue.
Barrington resident trying to go there if
Yeah.
anyone's gonna use it.
the. Yeah,
Is there anything in here that mentions what the hours operate? It's
no,
too
they haven't,
soon.
They don't
it's
know
too
yet.
soon, they don't have the information. And I told them, I was like, then they needed to come back with more information. They wanted to bring it up for, I guess, more notification for the board.
I mean,
And wanted your input, and I told them, well, we've already have ours going, and ours is probably gonna go for before.
unless anyone has any comment, I just think it's kind that they did this, but I don't think it's any
Nope.
right now, right? That was awesome.
So I'm disappointed they tore the house down, because I was hoping that was gonna be a little restaurant.
The house got torn down?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Oh, I
that
haven't been
house
out
is
that way in a
gone now,
while.
the barn's being renovated, and it's owned by Tuckaway Tavern. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping for a little mini.
I thought they were gonna rehab the house.
If you want to.
That's what I thought too.
The house, I'll be.
Okay.
You're not that far away, you smell smoke, could be something cooking. So we can move on from that?
Yes.
Thank you, Town of Nottingham. Reports from other committees. The master plan, land use and transportation chapter updates kickoff meeting that was held before this.
Yep, that happened right before this meeting. Just want to let you know that they met. It was a successful meeting. It was just more for everybody to come together to discuss how to move forward with updating the master plan chapters, and they'll be meeting next month to do more of a nitty-gritty meeting that keeps the board apprised of how it's going.
So
Later
it's
kickoff.
a good start and it's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, so I would like to thank Amanda, who goes by Vanessa, for helping me. Says
Well, I think Buddy deserves, a little, give it up for Buddy for the job he did,
Job well done.
And when Andy finds out how early you got us out of here, he might nominate you to be the chair all the time.
I'll
You have to
second.
wait for the, yeah, have to wait a year though, doesn't
I
he?
do have to say something. I noticed there wasn't a round of applause from. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's not. What is considered?
That's been asked many times. The consensus has come down. Actual geographical center was where the old town hall was, where it got torn down. When we did an analysis, when we sent it out for people to do the whole thing, when we did that information gathering a few years ago, people's general consumption was the corner of the intersection of 9 and 125, because that's where they feel the community center of Barrington is, not the geographical center. So if you want to know the geographical center, it's one spot. If you want to know the community center, it's another. So it's all in what you consider the center of town.
So
I was asked that question. Here?
That's what come out of that thing when we sent the stuff out to people. It was, I don't know, must have been 15 years ago, maybe. Quite a long time ago. Yeah, I know.
This is right behind us we're talking about. The building was here that got torn down.
Yeah, that's actually the geographical center of town, but most people consider the intersection of 9 and 125 the center.
Yeah. All right, so reports from other committees being said, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens between 8 and 9 that could take us on another hour and a half. We have until 9:30, right?
All right.
Okay, Andy. Anybody?
That's it. I didn't get a,
You're just on trial here.
Yeah.
It's a trial.
I am high,
Premiership.
I am high with power right now and I'm gonna abuse it.
So adjourn us.
All right, so,
Ocean.
yeah, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Well, when's the next meeting is July 12th?
July 12th.
Yeah, July 12th at 6:30 PM here.
I make a motion then that we adjourn.
Second.
That's your eye.
I was gonna say with a show of hands. Good, we're done. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm worried about those because